I'd been coming to that corner cafe for months before I ever spoke to her. Every Wednesday, after my shift at the auto shop, I'd sit by the window with the chipped frame, order the same black coffee, and pretend to read. Pretend, because I was really watching her. She'd come in around 4. Always the same. Hair tucked into a loose bun, a navy cardigan over some simple dress. Glasses sliding down her nose as she looked at the pastry case like she was negotiating with herself. I didn't know her name back then, just that she had a quiet kind of grace that made people lower their voices around her. When she finally turned, I realized I knew her. Well, sort of. She was Eli's stepmom, my friend from college, the one who dropped out sophomore year, the one who'd invited me to a barbecue at his dad's place 2 summers ago. That's where I'd seen her first, barefoot on the porch, holding a glass of white wine, laughing at something she didn't find all that funny. Now here she was again, in this small cafe like the past didn't remember either of us. That day, she caught me looking. Just once. Then again. And instead of pretending not to notice, she smiled a little, half amusement, half curiosity, and said, "Coffee, always black?" Her voice was lower than I remembered. Not smoky, just lived in. Yeah, I said. Habit, I guess. Old habit for someone your age. I laughed, more out of nerves than humor. Guess I'm old where it counts. She gave me that small, knowing smile people give when they've already decided not to believe you. Then she took her drink, tea, chamomile maybe, and sat a few tables away. After that, we kept finding each other there. Not on purpose, or at least not at first. Some days we'd talk about nothing, weather, bad playlists, the way this cafe never changed its bulb brightness. Other days, it was quieter. We'd just share space, each doing our own thing. She'd mark papers. I'd sketch or scroll through notes I'd never finish. I noticed the details before I noticed the weight of noticing. Her hands always curled around her cup, like she was guarding it from the air. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she wanted to avoid a question. How she paused before answering, as if trying to remember how to sound casual. One evening, she asked, "How's Eli these days?" I shrugged. "Haven't talked in a while. People drift." She nodded, but her eyes softened like that answer landed somewhere personal. "They do," she said. We left it there. That night, I got home and opened my phone out of habit. There was a half-written text to her I'd started and deleted 3 times. Something small. Something like, "You look tired today. Hope you got home okay." But I didn't send it. Instead, I went to bed with that heavy kind of quiet, the kind that feels like waiting for something you don't have the right to want. The next week, she wasn't at the cafe. Or the next. Then, on the 3rd Wednesday, just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You still go there on Wednesdays?" I stared at the screen. No name, no emoji. Just that question. And the scent of chamomile drifted up from my memory like it had never left. I didn't answer right away. Just sat there, fingers over the screen, coffee gone cold, heart doing that uneven thing it does when something familiar suddenly feels new again. Then I typed, "Yeah, same table. Sent." And just before I locked the phone, her reply appeared. "Then I guess I'll see you next Wednesday." She showed up that next Wednesday, like she said she would. Same cardigan, same quiet grace, but there was something different in the way she entered. Her eyes found me too quickly, like she'd already decided we weren't pretending anymore. "Still black coffee?" she asked, settling across from me without asking first. "Still chamomile?" She smiled. "Some habits stay. Others we outgrow." We sat there with that line floating between us. I wasn't sure if she meant me, or Eli, or something else entirely. For a while, we talked like usual. Music, the cafe's broken air conditioner, a small joke about how time makes everything taste either sweeter or sadder. Then the conversation slowed. The background noise of cups clinking and soft jazz filled the space where words should have gone. That's when she said it. "You remind me of when I first moved here." I looked up. "How's that? I used to come here too. With someone." Her voice was calm, but she pressed her fingers into the cup's rim like she was keeping the memory from spilling. "My husband." Eli's dad. Oh, I didn't know what to say. He always ordered the same thing, she continued. But he'd never finish it. Just talked, never listened. Funny what you start to miss after it's gone. The noise, even. There was no self-pity in her tone. Just a quiet acceptance, like she'd already mourned the part of herself that had needed that man. I didn't know you were divorced, I said carefully. She gave a faint shrug. You weren't supposed to. We both smiled at that, but it didn't erase the weight of what had just been said. After that, the air between us shifted, not heavier, just closer. I noticed how her laughter carried differently now, how she'd look at me mid-sentence and hold it, like she was searching for something she wasn't ready to find. When she reached for the sugar packet and brushed my hand by accident, she froze. I did too. It wasn't dramatic, just a moment suspended too long to ignore. Her hand stayed there, warm and still, before she slowly pulled it back. She cleared her throat. You should be careful. Of what? Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. Being kind. People read into things. I wanted to tell her I already had, that her voice had become the echo in my apartment, that every Wednesday felt like a countdown. But I didn't. I just nodded, pretending I understood in a lighter way than I did. We sat in silence, both pretending to check our phones. Outside, the late light stretched across the window, gold and slow. She took a sip of tea that had long gone cold and exhaled, almost a laugh. I don't know why I keep coming here, she said softly. Maybe you like bad coffee, I offered. Her lips curved, a quiet, tired smile. Then she looked at me fully, like she'd just realized something. You shouldn't make women laugh like that, she said. It makes it hard for them to forget you. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Not because of what she said, but because she said it like she already regretted meaning it. She stood to leave, gathering her bag. But before she turned, she reached out, just a small, unthinking motion, and brushed a crumb from my sleeve. It lasted a second. It meant everything. I watched her go, her figure framed in the window's fading light. And later, when I walked home under the street lamps, I caught myself smiling for no reason, before realizing, I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next few Wednesdays blurred into each other. Same cafe, same table, same slow orbit we pretended wasn't happening. But something was different now. She'd started sitting closer, not across, but beside me, sharing space instead of distance. Small things. She'd steal a sip of my coffee, roll her eyes at my music playlist, ask about things she didn't really need to know. It wasn't flirting. Not exactly. It was something quieter. One afternoon, I got there late. She was already sitting, reading on her phone, glasses low on her nose. When she looked up, her smile broke, brief, involuntary, before she masked it with calm. Thought you weren't coming, she said. Wouldn't miss it. She hummed, a small sound of disbelief that sounded like relief. We talked, easy at first, until the door opened behind me and a voice said my name. Damn man, it is you. Eli. I hadn't seen him in over a year. Same energy, same careless grin. He looked at me, then at her, and for a second, just a second, his expression flickered. Oh hey, he said, awkward now. Didn't know you two, knew each other. His stepmom's posture changed. Straightened. Composed. We just run into each other sometimes, she said quickly. I nodded, too fast. Yeah, small town. He laughed, but it didn't sound natural. Guess so. Anyway, good seeing you, man. He tapped my shoulder and left. The silence that followed was sharp. Neither of us looked up. She spoke first. That was, yeah. A pause. Then she exhaled through her nose, quiet and long. This was a bad idea. What was? She looked at me finally, and her eyes softened in that way that makes a person feel both seen and gently dismissed. You being kind again. I wanted to say something. To tell her it wasn't kindness. It was gravity. But she was already gathering her things. I reached for her wrist before I could stop myself. Just enough to make her pause. Stay, I said. It wasn't confident. It sounded like a plea. Her hand stayed under mine for a heartbeat. Warm still. Then she slowly turned it palm up, resting there between us like a question neither of us could answer. She didn't pull away, not right away, but when she did, she didn't look at me. "You don't understand what this looks like," she whispered. "I don't care. That's the problem." And she left, just like that. The next day, I didn't go to the cafe. Neither did she. But that night, my phone buzzed again. "You forgot your book." I hadn't. I'd left it there. On purpose. I typed back, "You still there?" But didn't send it. Hours passed. Then another message came. "Don't make me regret this." I stared at it until the words blurred, heart loud in my chest. Then, slowly, I typed back, "Then don't leave the light on if you don't want me to find it." I didn't hit send. Just stared. Thought about her hand under mine, the air that hummed between us. Almost. Always almost. And that night, I didn't sleep. It had been weeks since the cafe. We'd gone back to pretending. Small texts, no meetings. But silence has its own gravity. It pulls you back whether you want it to or not. She texted me on a Thursday evening. "Can you drop by? Just for a minute. I found your book again." I almost didn't go. Almost. Her house was quiet, warm in that way where the air feels like memory. She opened the door in a gray sweater, hair down this time. No makeup. She looked different. Not younger. Just unguarded. "Sorry," she said. "Didn't want to leave it at the cafe again." "It's fine." I tried to sound casual, but my voice didn't come out right. We stood there in the doorway longer than necessary until she stepped aside. "You can come in, if you want." The living room was dim, half lit by a lamp and the soft hum of some old movie playing quietly on TV. She set my book on the coffee table and poured tea for both of us without asking. We sat, close enough to feel the warmth between our knees. "So," she said, "how's work?" "Fine. Same as always." She nodded, eyes on her cup. "You're not supposed to stay the same forever, you know." It wasn't about work. We both knew it. I looked at her, the quiet crease between her brows, the way her thumb traced the mug's handle like she was stalling herself. "You mean you're worried I'm not changing fast enough?" "I mean," she said softly, "I'm worried you think I haven't." The silence that followed was heavier than any confession. "I wasn't supposed to see you like this," she said after a long pause. Like someone my age could still want to be seen. The word want landed between us like glass. Fragile, transparent, dangerous. "I do see you," I said quietly. She laughed once, the kind that almost breaks mid-breath. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Her voice was trembling now, but her face stayed calm. "You're young. You think this is about choice. For me, it's about consequence." I didn't answer, just watched her hands, the way they clenched, then released, as if she was arguing with herself. "You think this is nothing," she said. "But it isn't. It's a door. And once you open it, then let me open it." She looked up at me, eyes glassy in the lamplight. "You don't know what you're asking." Maybe not. The air felt electric. Not loud, just charged with the weight of everything we weren't saying. I could feel the warmth of her shoulder, the faint scent of tea and something floral. Then she exhaled, a long, fragile breath, and said, almost to herself, "Eli's coming home next week." It was her way of building a wall again, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. "I shouldn't have called you," she said, staring into her cup. "But you did," I whispered. She looked at me then, really looked. The kind of gaze that strips you down to silence. Her hand twitched, almost reaching for mine, before she pulled it back and folded it into her lap. Neither of us moved. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, the soft hum of the forgotten movie, the sound of her breathing, uneven, uncertain. "Tell me to go," I said. She didn't. She just sat there, eyes locked on mine, as if the question itself had been enough to undo everything we'd been holding back. It rained that night, the kind of soft, steady rain that makes everything sound like thinking. I hadn't planned to see her again. But plans never really mattered between us, did they? I was walking home from work when I saw her car parked outside the cafe. Lights off, just sitting there. I hesitated across the street, watching through the wet glass as she sat inside, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking. She looked smaller somehow, or maybe just tired of pretending not to feel anything. Before I could talk myself out of it, I crossed. She didn't look up when I entered. I stood at her table for a moment before she finally said, quietly, "I told you not to come." "I know. Then why are you here?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe because I don't like how we ended. Maybe because I still think about that night at your house. Maybe because you looked like you needed someone to remind you you're allowed to be seen." She closed her eyes for a second, exhaling through her nose. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I'll believe them." The words landed somewhere deep, somewhere I didn't have language for. The cafe was nearly empty, just us and a barista pretending not to listen. Rain pressed against the windows, soft and relentless. I sat down across from her. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally, she said, "He asked me to try again. Eli's dad." That one sentence hurt more than I expected. "Oh," I said. "It came out smaller than I meant." "I haven't answered," she continued. "But I think part of me already has." I nodded, staring at the table. "You don't owe me anything." "I know." She looked at me then, eyes glassy but steady. "But that doesn't mean this didn't matter." Something in me cracked. Not loudly, just enough to let the truth out. "I wasn't trying to make it matter," I said. "It just did." We both laughed at that, quiet and a little broken. "Do you think," I asked after a moment, "if we'd met somewhere else, another time?" She cut me off gently. "We didn't." Her hand was resting on the table, close, but not enough to touch. I could feel the warmth radiating from it, the ache of something unfinished. "You'll forget me," she said softly. "I won't." "You will. That's how you'll survive this." We sat there, both knowing she was probably right. When she finally stood to leave, she hesitated. "You're a good man," she said, voice almost trembling. "Just too early for me." I tried to smile, but it faltered halfway. "And you're too late for me." Her eyes softened, and then she did something small but enough to undo me. She reached out and brushed her thumb lightly across my cheek. Just once, like she was memorizing it. "Take care of yourself," she whispered. And before I could say anything else, she was gone. I sat there long after the rain stopped, the chair across from me still warm. It wasn't closure. Not really. But it was something, a quiet, human okay. It's strange how time rearranges the weight of things. 2 years passed before I saw her again. Not by plan, just life circling back the way it does when you've finally stopped expecting it to. The cafe had changed a little. New tables. Different owner. Same uneven light through the window. I hadn't been in since that last night, but something in me decided to go anyway. Maybe curiosity. Maybe the memory of chamomile and rain. I ordered black coffee. Sat by the window with the chipped frame. They'd never fixed it. Some things, I guess, are meant to stay imperfect. It was a quiet morning. 8:47 a.m. The hour I used to see her walk past when she still lived nearby. I caught myself glancing at the door, not expecting anything, just remembering. Then it opened. She looked almost the same. A little older, hair shorter now, glasses still sliding down her nose. A soft kind of calm in her eyes, the kind that comes after choosing yourself a few too many times. When she saw me, she paused. That tiny flicker of disbelief crossed her face, then softened into something like peace. "You still drink it black?" she asked. I smiled. "Guess I never outgrew the habit." She laughed quietly, shaking her head. Still stubborn. We ended up sitting together. No hesitation this time. Just two people who'd already said everything that ever needed saying, and survived it. She told me she'd moved back recently, part-time work at a local gallery. I told her about my new job, my small apartment, the plant I somehow kept alive. The conversation flowed differently now. Lighter. No edge, no restraint. The kind of talk that happens when you've both lived enough to stop performing. At one point, she looked out the window, voice softer. "I used to think what we had was a mistake. And now?" I asked. She turned to me. "Now I think it was just unfinished." That silence between us, it wasn't tense anymore. It was full. When the waitress came to refill our cups, She ordered chamomile. I didn't tease her about it this time. I just smiled, remembering how she used to cradle her mug like it held something sacred. I missed this, I said quietly. She nodded. So did I. We didn't hold hands, didn't make promises. But as the morning light stretched across the table, her knee brushed mine, small, natural, unafraid. And that was enough. We stayed until the cafe started to fill up. Then, as she gathered her things, she glanced at me and said, "Same time next week?" I pretended to think about it. "Only if you promise to bring the tea." She smiled. That same quiet, knowing smile from years ago, except now, it didn't hide anything. As she walked out, she turned once, caught my eye, and mouthed a single word. "Okay." And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt like a sentence finally finished.